I am so excited to share that you can now watch all of my upcoming podcasts on my brand new YouTube channel for the What Now podcast. So many of you have asked for more video content, and now you can watch these powerful conversations face to face. Every story, every testimony, every moment of faith and resilience, you'll now find it all on YouTube. So I'll be posting more of my episodes there, along with new short clips and deeper insights to help strengthen your faith and remind you that you are never alone on this journey. I invite you to subscribe on my YouTube channel at Podcast What Now. That's at Podcast What Now, so you never miss an episode.
This is the What Now Podcast.
In this episode of the What Now podcast, I sit down with Lauren Yarro, mother, creator, and the voice behind the Blonde Apologist, to talk about standing for faith in a world that often challenges it. Growing up as a Latter-day Saint in the Bible Belt, Lauren faced criticism for her beliefs early on. But instead of growing bitter, she chose compassion and courage. She shares how that foundation prepared her to share her faith online, creating an authentic space for women who are trying to hold on to belief amid a world obsessed with perfection. We talk about overcoming fear, separating culture from doctrine, and finding strength in God, even when we feel unqualified. Lauren's story is a reminder that your voice matters and that faith, shared sincerely, can inspire others to stay true to what's real and eternal.
This is the What Now Podcast.
Today, I'm here with Lauren Yarro. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. Yeah, I'm so glad to have you. It's so fun to have someone young. I mean, you're 28, you're a mom of two, and you're already such a strong voice for faith online. But before we begin, can you just share a little bit about yourself so our listeners can get to know you better?
Sure. Lauren Yarro, I grew up in Oklahoma and I came out to BYU, did college there and got married and have stayed in Utah since. About 3 years ago, I felt impressed to share our faith online. So I started sharing my beliefs online and I started a podcast just in the last year to dive even deeper into talking about my faith. And it's just been so fun. So that's kind of what I do. And I have 2 kids and my husband, and we all live in Provo, Utah.
I love Provo, Utah. I'm splitting time into Provo and California right now. It's the best.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I love California.
And I just met you recently, a little art show, and it was so serendipitous because someone had mentioned that I should interview you, and then I met you.
I know,
I love how those things.
It really was perfect, the way that it all worked out.
I know. I love how those things happen. So you grew up in Oklahoma. You're right in the Bible Belt, and you face faith challenges kind of early on. I mean, even attacks from your teachers and your track coach. I mean, how did that experience of having to defend your beliefs as a teenager shape your confidence to doing what you're doing so publicly today?
Yeah, I really do feel like that was God preparing me to be comfortable in this space, because when you share your faith online, you're subject to a lot of criticism. And I've been navigating and responding to criticism about my beliefs since I was literally 12 years old. So I think that it was just God's way of preparing me. I'm really grateful for my upbringing. And I loved it in some ways. I loved that I got to be a missionary at my school and I got to talk to people about it. Like it was really fun. I was known as the Mormon girl in my community. And there was other members of our faith too, so I wasn't alone. I think there was 4 members in my class of 400. And I feel like we held our head high and that badge high, even though in the Bible Belt, there is some pretty harsh teachings against our faith. Like I even had my best friend my senior year tell me, she's like, I know you're trying so hard to follow Jesus Christ, but like you're going to hell because you don't follow the right Jesus, you know? And this is someone who I'm so dear with, and we're still good friends to this day. And she was totally saying it out of place of like worry for my salvation, right? I would go
trying to save you.
Yeah. And we turned it into a place of just mutual respect. I remember going to my friends' baptisms when they chose to get baptized. I went to Bible camp as a kid growing up with my friends. So it became a really great place to grow up. But I do feel like because of those criticisms and those attacks from such a young age, I am comfortable in this space. And I had to realize and decide, why do I believe the things that I believe at a young age? And so now I don't question those things and I can be very forward with them.
Well, when we talked earlier, you had mentioned that your parents were really good at having these open dialogue conversations with you to help you really kind of verbalize what you believe and help support you in what you believe. So you had some kind of content to go back with.
Totally. Yeah. And it wasn't just my parents. Like, I do feel like my parents were so good at that, but also my leaders. And, those were the conversations they were having at work. And so I remember my seminary teacher being a really good resource for me when I was receiving such criticism. And so all of just like the member family and community that you have in places where the church isn't so popular, is really such a blessing.
Yeah, it really is. I grew up in Maryland and there really weren't any members at my school either, besides my sisters and my one cousin. So, and people really don't understand it. They're like, I was the only member of the church I'd ever known. Mm-hmm. So, and it's interesting when you do kind of stand up for what you believe in, they do protect and defend you. Like, I go to parties and they'd be like, oh yeah, she doesn't drink. Don't bother her.
Yes.
Like once you stand for it, they kind of support you.
Totally.
So what was it like creating kind of your first faith-based TikTok post, knowing it might incite this criticism and backlash?
It was so intimidating. I think anyone would understand that that's an intimidating thing to do. Yeah, I remember just praying and just being like, okay, if I feel like I need to do this, I'm going to do this, and just help it show up on the feeds of people who need to see this message, or like for whatever reason. And so, yeah, it was really intimidating, but I did it, and it was crazy how quick the positive response was and how many people related to it, that I was then motivated to keep posting and keep sharing these things.
There is a need. Like, I feel like in your generation with your age group, there is definitely a need for it. And you're giving people kind of the courage to stand up and say something, right? You're almost validating what they want to say and are too scared to say.
Totally.
I love it. And it's kind of fun that you created the Blonde Apologist. You have such a clever and memorable name. How did you come up with it?
So I had been on TikTok for a little over a year. I think it had been maybe 2 years almost. And I had learned that I couldn't just share my faith, but I actually had to defend my faith so often. And an apologist is someone who makes a defense for something that's highly critical. And so they share their opinion of why they believe the things that they do. And I naturally became an apologist. And so I kind of resonated with that name. And so I was like, okay, I was just kind of brainstorming names with apologist in it, because I just felt like that related to the kind of content that I was making. And I decided on Blonde because I didn't want to be taken too seriously. The apologist space, especially in our church, is growing a ton right now. And there's a lot of like philosophical and just very like scholarly responses, and people are so professional in the space, and I'm so grateful for them. And I think they're so needed, but like, I'm not that. I'm Blonde. Okay. I am very casual. I'm not going to give you the scholarly answer of why I believe the things I do. I'm just going to give you like my own personal experience. And so I was hoping that would lighten the title a little bit and help people just see like, hey, this is me. This is my representation. I also didn't want to point to the church too much, because I don't want people to take my, like, what I share is to be like doctrine, right? I'm just like, this is my personal opinion and the things that I'm sharing.
Yeah, your own experience. Well, I think the Blonde Apologist is perfect. It's kind of catchy and it appeals to people your age. Yeah. And I think people older like me, I've been looking at some of your stuff too, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got some great points here. This is good content.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this now? How long have you been in this space?
So I started last June. So it hasn't been super long.
You're fairly new.
Yeah. Super fresh.
So what did you hope to accomplish when you transitioned from kind of these short TikToks into longer podcast episodes? Why did you decide to go into a podcast? Because TikTok gets a big following fast.
Yes. I feel like TikTok, you can only keep someone's attention for about 30 to 60 seconds. And I wanted to talk about things and dive deeper. And I wanted to have more of a conversation rather than feeling like I'm just like talking to my phone. I wanted to have a community where people could share their experiences and we can talk about them together. And a nice part of also doing long formatted stuff is there's not nearly the amount of criticism as there is on social media, right? My TikToks and Instagram videos will go to millions of people, and I'm going to end up on the wrong side of the internet, and people are going to be very critical. But rarely are people going to search about my faith on a podcast and then proceed to listen to me talk about why I love my faith for an hour, right? I don't have very many hate listeners. You know, I do have a couple. I don't know why they do what they do, but it's almost a safer place for me to be even more vulnerable about some of my experiences and my faith.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably hard to find like a good mix of, you know, how do you choose what's cultural or trending topics to tackle on your podcast? I mean, how do you keep the tone faithful but approachable? I mean, it's a delicate balance between that.
Yeah, it totally is. I'm glad though that it's me, right? It's my branding and it's just my personal takes. And so I feel like I am naturally interested in talking about the pop culture things, like if our faith, like the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, like such a fun episode. I want to talk about that. But like naturally, I also want to understand what my role is as a woman in this church and what it means to have the priesthood power as a female. And so like those are such different ideas in such different episodes, but it's also very natural for me to talk about those things like with my friends. And so I feel like I just pick topics that I would naturally have with the people in my life. And honestly, one of the reasons why I started the podcast is because I did notice in my friendships, in my social circles, that I was having such great conversations with my friends, and they would often like come with me with like, hey, I want to hear what your thoughts are on this. And I want to know like how you reconcile this. And I just want to be that for my listeners. I'm like, we're just friends. And I treat it as if I'm just sitting down with you and we're talking about these things. Like, hey, if you struggled with watching the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, let's talk about that. But like, hey, if you struggle with LGBTQ and what that looks like in our church, like, let's talk about that as well. And so I guess I just pick topics on things that are coming up in my life and conversations that I'm having naturally and I want to learn more about as well.
I love that too, because then it's just natural, right? It evolves from what people you are interested in. I mean, you want to know. That's why how I pick a lot of my own topics. I'm like, I want to understand this better.
Totally.
So I'm going to interview someone who understands it better than me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And if I want to know, other people probably want to know too.
Exactly.
You know, because there's a lot, it's really tough in the church too, because, you know, we have this church culture and we have doctrine. So what have you learned about distinguishing between church culture and doctrine? Why do you think that distinction is so important for young Latter-day Saints today? A lot of times those lines get blurred, and that's where the issues kind of come in.
They do get blurred. And I think that if you're able to recognize the distinction, then you're naturally more likely to hold on to our faith, because the doctrine is very beautiful and it is meant to bless your life and it's inclusive. But when you take your experiences and they don't align with the doctrine, you have a really hard time wanting to stay or believe these things. And so I guess I love finding the difference between the culture and the doctrine, because it validates a lot of members who have been struggling, like they have a pain that they're trying to work through. And sometimes if they can realize that, well, this was actually my personal experience and this was culturally how it impacted me, then they are more likely to hold on to their faith and work through some of those issues.
It's so true, because I know a lot of the people I know who have left the church, they've really left over things that are very cultural in the church, not doctrine.
Yeah.
They really, most of them support the doctrine. There's things about the culture that are just too difficult for them.
And if we don't point out those issues, then they're not going to change. And rather than just being like, I don't like this aspect of the church, I'm going to leave. I tell people, I'm like, no, you need to stay because I need your help to change this culture. We need to do something about it. So we need to talk about it openly. We need to criticize it when it's wrong. And we need to reevaluate where we can better align with our doctrine. That's the change that we need to see.
I totally agree. I mean, the cultural thing, it's tricky because there are certain expectations in the church culture. There are judgments around certain things in the church culture, and it can be really difficult. But if everyone who has an issue with it leaves, who's going to change it?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's a moral responsibility to stay and influence people and educate them and help them see where the culture can be damaging and how they can make a difference and change it.
Yeah.
So
And I've found,
yeah, I mean, and you're doing that with this podcast and your TikToks and all the things that you're doing. It's so good.
yeah, and I've found that it's just, I think it's grown so quickly and resonated with people so much because they just feel validated in their experience, and no one's telling them that it's okay to be annoyed with that thing or not align with that opinion. And someone just needed to say it. And these aren't things that we're going to talk about in Sunday school, because we're going to focus on the doctrine and we're going to focus on what matters and dive into the scriptures. And I think that's great. I'm not saying that these are the conversations we need to have in Sunday school. I think we just need to be having them more with our friends, with our community. When I started the podcast, I remember I launched my first episode and I just said, like, my hope is for you to listen to this and then want to talk to more people about it. Like, just wanting to be like, hey, what is your opinion on swimming on Sunday? Like, let's talk about this. Where does this come from? Why do we do that? And it's so fun to see that. And then I love to, on social media, be like, okay, now let's talk about it here and like share your experience. And that's really important to me too, because I know my experience is so limiting to reach other people. But when I can have other people share and we can come together, then it's better.
I've done a couple episodes on this, the cultural aspects. And it's just John Hilton III is the one I did one of these with. And there are so many cultural traditions we've created in our church that are not doctrine. They're not even endorsed by the church, but there's things that we have created as a church culture and community that really we don't need to be doing.
Mm-hmm. No, totally.
That can be damaging to other members of the church. So it's good to kind of address these things. And I love how President Nelson talked about the way you can show your love and holiness for the Sabbath day is what you do on the Sabbath day. It's a direct representation of how you feel about the Savior. It doesn't need to be a list of do's and don'ts. Is what you're doing representing your love for the Savior on this sacred day. That's a perfect response instead of a list of do's and don'ts.
Well, yeah. And just like with that quote from President Nelson, if you also look at For the Strength of Youth, the newest edition, it's like we see the shift happening in the church as well. The church, I do think for many generations was very like to-do list, and it needed to look a certain way, very cookie cutter. And we've seen that shift, right? We're in the time where we teach correct principles and they govern themselves. And I just want to normalize that we're in that period so there's less judgment and people stop looking at how other people are choosing to live it and do it and just focus on their personal experience and their revelation on how to live their life. I think that's so vital. And so that's honestly like the theme throughout my whole podcast.
And it's a good thing. I mean, how is partnering with God giving you the courage to move forward with your kind of initiative to strengthen the faith of others? I mean, you have to partner with God in this. I mean, I feel led to do this. You have felt led to do this. I think He knows all our gifts and talents, and He's going to create opportunities for us to use them.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say like He knows our gifts and talents, because I didn't think this was a gift or talent of mine. And I don't think it was. I grew up with dyslexia, and English and writing and speaking were not my strong suits ever.
Like, what the heck? I have dyslexia and all this, and now I got to do all this language-based communication.
Oh my gosh. Every time I try to write something on social media, I'm like sending it to my husband or my sister. I'm like, please proofread this. How many spelling errors are there? Like, what am I doing wrong? Because it's not a strength of mine. But I do believe that God just enables you. And I'm just like constantly humbled. And I don't know how I got here and why I've been chosen to do this, but I'm just so grateful that I at least had the confidence to start it. Like, the fact that I'm here today is really, really cool. And I wouldn't be here today if a year ago I didn't decide to just put it out there and begin.
I think that's the hardest part, right? Just starting, having the courage to start. You get kind of imposter syndrome. Like, do I really know what I'm doing in this space? Everyone's doing this. How can I even contribute? So I think it's great. You just took the big step forward. That's the hardest part.
Well, and I feel that all the time. I still feel that like every couple of weeks, I'm like, okay, I am not the girl for the job. This isn't for me.
Yes, you are.
But I am grateful that I am partnered with God, because absolutely when I get in those ruts and I'm not feeling inspired, I do feel like I'm picked up every time. And we talked about this, how you felt that too. You've thought about giving up this podcast multiple times, but then God has His way of telling you, no, I need you to keep doing this. And so I just try to live my life to be like, okay, if you're going to tell me to keep doing something, I'm going to keep doing it and I'm going to try my best. Sorry if it's a little dumb and it's not perfect. I'm just going to put it out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he wants us to do. And even President Nelson was telling us he wants women to stand up and get involved in their communities and use their voices.
Yep.
And that women will be part of the ushering in of the second coming. We're going to have a major influence in turning the hearts of the people.
Yeah.
That's been said. So, I mean, you've noticed many LDS influencers stepping away from the church, but you've chosen to stay and defend your faith. So why do you think it's important for women, especially young moms, to see faithful voices like yours online?
Yeah, just so they don't feel alone. Just so they don't feel like they're crazy. And social media is so good at telling us what we want for our life and showing us what we think we want. We want the aesthetic. We want to be pretty. We want it to be all put together. And I think a lot of those influencers who are really good at showing that are also telling women, I don't need faith. I don't need the gospel. I don't need organized religion to have this perfect curated life that I'm showing you. And I guess I worry about women falling for that because it's not what it's perceived to be. A life without Jesus Christ is not the perfect aesthetic life that you want, especially when life gets hard and you can't plan for the bad things that are going to happen in this life. And I just want women to hold on so badly because I want them to be prepared and have a relationship with Christ when those things do happen for in their lives.
It's true. And not having religion or a deep sense of purpose connected to God is a really empty life. Yeah. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only live like that so long. I mean, I've interviewed lots of people who have left and come back and they're like, they just felt empty and lost.
Yeah.
And when they came back, they felt fulfilled and connected.
Yeah.
And we have an incredible community.
I know.
I mean, our community is second to none. I mean, the support, like my back went out for the last couple of days and my 86-year-old neighbor, who's adorable, one of my best friends, she brought me over all the Advil I needed to load up for this podcast.
I love it.
I was like, and in 5 minutes, she's at my house. Like, we have an incredible community.
Yes.
It's amazing, and I'm in California. I'm not even in Utah where everyone's your LDS neighbor. She's just incredible. So I feel like we have such a strong community that allows us to be supported and sustained through the highs and lows of life, because we're going to get slammed with some hard things in life. And we're going to need that community and we're going to need that doctrine to sustain us. So I'm glad you're offering that. So you've seen firsthand the negative and positive side of social media. I mean, what gives you hope about the future of faith online?
I'm really excited because so many women, I can tell, are also receiving this call and are stepping into the space. I'm just so grateful for that. And, there's always going to be criticism and it's going to obviously get louder. We know it's going to get louder and it's going to be more intense. But as long as we keep showing up in the space, you're going to reach people and help people who are struggling through these things. And I'm just glad that more people are stepping up. And even you don't have to do it in social media, right? You can also just step up by sharing that you're a member of your faith wherever you live. I just recently went to my 10-year high school reunion. It was just last weekend. And everyone, again, knew growing up that I was Mormon. So the first thing people wanted to talk to me about was like, oh, what are your thoughts of the secret lives of Mormon wives? Like, our church is in media and our church's name is just going to be the front of people's minds more and more. And I think that just the average Joe out there needs to know that you are a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints and you love it. So that's their touch point with our faith rather than the secret lives of Mormon wives or whatever it's going to be in pop culture. I think it's just so important that men and women just share that they love their faith and who they are. And it can be as simple as just letting people know, like, oh yeah, I'm actually a member of that faith. And I thought that show was so interesting, the way they portrayed some of the things,
Yeah. Well, it's such a misportrayal of who we are. It's the opposite antithesis of who we are. That's why it's so important for authentic, dedicated members of the church to stand up like you're doing, like I'm doing, Callie Baker. There's a lot of us in this space now who are standing up and really being a good example of what it looks like to be, a dedicated member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's not flashy. It's not offensive. It's not edgy. It's humility. It's determination to do the right thing. It's to rely on God. I mean, there's so many virtuous attributes that come from someone who really is partnered with God. And the public needs to see that. And that, what drives ratings is this toxicity and this craziness that's on these shows. And every network is doing something about, the Mormons, because the ratings go through the roof when anything is connected to Mormon. And that's why they're doing a lot of these sensationalized shows. But there's got to be grounding voices like us out there who are trying to help people see what we really represent. So, and I think that's what President, Nelson has wanted us doing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I don't want anyone listening to think that they have to do it as a podcast or they have to do it on social media as an influencer.
Yeah.
I really am. I know a lot of people think that this is so bad for the church, but in some ways, I am excited and I think it's good for the church because it opens more conversations up about our church. And I'm having more conversations with people not of my faith about my faith because of this show and things like it, like the Book of Mormon, the musical. I always tell people, I shared this on my social media, that on my mission, I ran into someone who had just watched the Book of Mormon musical. And he was like, I watched the musical last night. He was like, can I actually get one of those books? And I'm like, yes, of course. So I gave him a book and we ended up meeting with him and he ended up getting baptized. And I'm like, God is going to make this crappy thing work in his favor. But he can only do it through us. He can only do it and that individual came up and asked me because he saw my name tag and he knew I was Mormon because he just watched the play. But I'm like, if people in your life don't know that you are a member of this church, you just need to tell them so that you have those opportunities to talk about it.
It's true. I had my nephew on his mission, and after they had the Broadway release, he was out there handing out copies of the Book of Mormon. Their mission leader had him out there hey, if you have questions, read the real book.
Yes.
And I tell you, they got a lot of contacts through that.
No, it's so good. And so don't think God is frustrated that all of this is happening. I think he's just going to make it work for our good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for someone listening who feels afraid to speak up about their beliefs, what encouragement would you give them? I mean, you had it kind of tough when you were a young teenager in Oklahoma, and your teacher in track coach even left the track team because of that. How do people, they're afraid to speak up about their beliefs because there are situations that can be really difficult for them if they do. What advice would you give to them?
I would just give the advice that you need to if you spend time with God, he will help you know how you can show up and give you the confidence to do so. Growth happens outside the comfort zone. So of course you're always going to maybe feel uncomfortable and it's going to be something that is out of your comfort zone. That just means you're about to grow. That means that you're about to embark on something that's going to make you better. And that's what my experience has been. There have been times when I am on my knees after reading so many TikTok messages and I'm like, Heavenly Father, I am so confused about this and I am feeling very alone in this situation. And those have turned into some of the most sacred experiences of my life. And so I'm grateful because I really would say I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's something you're scared of, but see it as an opportunity to grow and to just be partnered with God in something. There's nothing better than that. And that's such a sacred space.
Yeah, that's good advice. So what's next for the Blonde Apologist? How do you hope your voice continues to inspire and strengthen others?
Oh, I don't even know. I don't know what's next. I told you, I really want to gather women together. So the next thing that I want to do is not only just have the podcast, but I want to start having in-person events so that women can gather and be face to face and with like-minded women. But yeah, I just want to keep having these conversations and hopefully keep inspiring members of my faith through them.
Well, thank you for the good work you're doing. I loved having you join me today. Thank you for using your voice for good.
You too, Mary Alice. Thanks for all that you do. And I'm honored to come on. You've had such amazing guests. So thanks for letting me be one of them.
You're one of them. Thanks for joining us today.
This is the What Now Podcast.